Hey guys, my name is Tomasz and I help operational teams automate repetitive, manual, soul-crushing tasks. I spent 15 years solving logistic problems, from redesigning warehouse floors to leading network design for S&P 500 company. Today, I apply the same understand process-first approach to AI automation, and I share the framework I use to automate without breaking what already works. Over this talk, my goal is to provide all information you need to start automating your process. Today, we'll talk about two different approaches to automation: RPA, robotic process automation, and AI workflow automation. Plan for today, we'll talk about what automation is, the two kinds of automation, what are the main differences between them, what are the best use cases for them, and I would like to share also a case study which is supposed to give you more perspective on the automation. Automation is use of technology to perform tasks with minimal human intervention by following predefined steps and logic. There are two main types of automation: mechanical automation, where physical machines perform physical tasks, and software automation, where programs perform digital tasks. The question is why to automate? And here are a couple of reasons why you might consider that. Speed. Automated systems are faster than regular ones. They work in more accurate way, they're not making mistakes, they are able to scale way faster, and they work in more predictable, compliant way. Before we're gonna go further, I would like to address one technical term, which is APA. APA is an application programming interface. It's a controlled interface that let one system communicate with another. It's allowing fast automated data exchange. One of the ways of explaining how APA works is to compare this to restaurant situation. When you're going to a restaurant and you're choosing the dish from the menu, you're communicating this to the waiter. And waiter acts here as an APA because he's gonna bring your request to the kitchen and ensure that kitchen understand correctly what you want to order. When your order is ready, he also gonna bring the food back to your table. And that's exactly how APA works. It just ensures the smooth, controlled communication between the client and the server, where you act as a client and kitchen act as a server. APA lets you request the data, send the data, trigger an action, and integrate the apps, which for us will be very important when you're going to start talking about workflow automation. Knowing what APA is, let's start talking about automatization. The first stop here is RPA, robotic process automation. RPA is a software technology which uses intelligent bots to automate repetitive rule-based tasks. RPA interacts with application through interface and mimic human behavior. When your employee is clicking buttons and copying and pasting data between folders, that's exactly what bot gonna do. It's just gonna follow the same path as human would execute to complete the task. Okay, so what are the pros and cons of this solution? One of them is that RPA can work with the old systems which are lacking APAs. APAs allows connect different systems. If you're working with old WMS system or old finance systems which lacks this connection, you can still automate simple rule-based tasks via RPAs. RPAs are fast and accurate. They executing the process exactly as they are designed, and they're not making any mistakes. They also require minimal intervention into your infrastructure and the process. They can just work with that's what you have. You don't need to change your process, you don't need to change your systems. What are the cons of RPAs? They can't make intelligent decisions. That's something what is really lacking right now. The new RPAs have these capabilities, but the traditional ones, no. In age of AI, that's something what is really a big problem here. They have high maintenance cost. Every time when your system changes and your interface change, you need to reprogram the bot, which is expensive. And that leads to last disadvantages. In general, it is an expensive technology. Companies who implement and deploy these bots are expensive. Workflow automation is a completely different solution. Workflow automation works more as a coordination engine. It's not a software to automate one task. How workflow automation works is basically coordinating multi-step business processes across different departments and technologies. It connects different systems via API, webhooks, and native integrations. It's able to handle complex business rules with multiple decision paths, approvals, and escalations. Okay, so let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of this solution. One of the biggest advantage here is that workflow automation are resilience for change. Because they are connected via API, not via user interface, if there are changes to the software, they are able still to follow the same process. Workflow automation can also scale rapidly between multiple departments, and they are also way faster to deploy. Simple workflows can take days to deploy. Okay, so what are the disadvantages of this solution? The first one is limited app coverage. If your organization uses very niche software, maybe it will be not as easy as using API to connect it. And another one is hosting. You can host your automation or the cloud, which is cheap and easy. However, it might not fit heavily regulated industries, or you can do self-hosting when you need to invest in servers. It's more expensive and complex, but you have a robust system to protect your data. Let's address main differences to RPA and workflow automation. First of all, RPA is a tool to automate a task. Workflow automation is a tool to automate the process. RPA are very good to automate high volume, repetitive rule-based tasks, when workflow automation really shine when you have a complex process which involves multiple departments and multiple decision steps. To choose the right solution for your organization, you really need to understand what are you trying to solve here. Here are some considerations for you. What is the scope of the problem or issue are you trying to solve? If it's a simple task or it's a complex workflow. What are the integration and system requirements? Are you working with the aging softwares, or you have a modern system which is easy to connect via APIs? What kind of complexity are you trying to address? And the last one is maintenance. If you have a system and processes which change often, RPA will be not the best solution for you. All of these aspects gonna influence decision if you need to choose RPA or workflow automatization. Okay, so what are the best use cases for each of the approach? If you're working with a high volume repetitive tasks, go for RPAs. If you're working with a complex workflow which involves multiple systems and multiple departments, go with workflow automatization. There is one aspect which you really need to consider. What is the volume of the process? If you're working with a very high volume process, you might benefit from RPAs. How it works? When you're deploying RPA, you're paying for a license and you're paying for the development. After that, it doesn't really matter how often you're using this bot. If you have a process which executes thousands of steps, maybe RPA will be a better solution for you. With the workflow automatization, the cost structure is different. You're still paying for the deployment, but then you're paying for each execution. In some extreme cases, this solution might be more expensive. To give you some perspective, I check what is the pricing model for N8N, and right now for 100K executions, you're paying something like 1,500 euro. It's something between 1 and 2 cents per execution, which does not sound a lot. But again, if you're working with some extreme cases where execution is extremely high, you need to consider this before the deployment, because the surprise might be costly. The last stop for today is a case study. Delivery Hero is a German-based company which is involved in food delivery. They were founded in 2011. Right now they operate in 60 countries and they partnership with 500,000 restaurants. In 2024, they hit revenue of 12.8 million, and right now they employ around 53,000 people. Okay, so what was the challenge here? People were getting locked out from their accounts. It was happening around 800 times a month, and average recovery time was taking around 35 minutes. Just to put some perspective on that, I validate what is the average employer cost in Netherlands, and it is 32 euro per hour. If you're gonna do a quick and dirty calculation, we're getting to loss of 15,000 euro a month because employee cannot log to the system and are not able to complete any tasks. So what was their approach? They analyzed the process and they identified what was the bottleneck. In this case, it was the IT department. They replaced IT department in the process by the direct manager of an employee who was logged out. When manager approved the account recovery, the rest of the process was automated. What was the result of that implementation? They were able to cut recovery time from 35 minutes to 20, around 43% improvement. And I think it's a very good example of workflow automation because it just showcases easy things can be automated in a cheap and efficient way. Now the closing comment. I see two reasons why automatization is becoming more and more popular. The first one is AI. It's becoming so easy to implement AI into automatization. And that's addressing the biggest issue of past automatizations. They becoming adaptive and intelligent. Second of that is the cost drastically coming down. It's becoming available also for smaller organizations, not only for enterprises as it was in the past. I hope you're going to start thinking about your automatization today.